Where in the marketplace am I going to get my agents? Oh yeah, where indeed. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Mere Morpheus podcast. I'm your host here, Kyrin, live on the 7th of April 2025. And as you might surmise, this is the podcast where I heap the praise on the Google and Apple Play stores for their wonderful, distributed, fair, equitable products that you can find within there. No, I'm not going to be doing that today. I've heard actually a lot of developers complain about those certain stores. So no, instead we're going to explore the concept of a decentralized agent store, a decentralized store of various kinds, in fact, because we're going to be exploring why there is no parallel for dApps, decentralized apps, and a store for that, how it might look, and why I think Morpheus is the place for this kind of thing to be birthed. So let's get into our first little question for today. Is this decentralized? And if you're a normal person, you probably just threw up in your mouth. Why on earth would you touch one of the most annoying and unproductive arguments in crypto users, anything remotely to do with the crypto industry? Is this decentralized? And the reason I'm going to touch upon this, because I think it's kind of important when we're talking about the decentralized agent store that we actually have a little context for the definition of what it is and how it might look like. And so, am I a masochist for doing this? Well, obviously, but let's just dive into it anyway. And here's a couple of just things that I've seen over the years, people talking about decentralization, the pitfalls of it, and my kind of like little thoughts on this and how it will play into a decentralized agent store. So there's no real definable boundary point of something saying this is decentralized or not, but there is a kind of binary scale as well as another rating scale. And so the single fixed moment set in stone of time, this is decentralized. No, you're not going to find that. But at any given moment, I think you can apply the 0 to 1 scale and then also the 1 to 10 scale, much like you would come to rating attractiveness of a partner or something like that. So, let's say there's a girl you would like to make sweet, sweet love to, or if you want to put it more crudely, bang. And you could rate her with the 1 to 0 scale, which is simply yes, I would, or no, I wouldn't. And I feel like decentralization is kind of like that. You can look at a protocol and say, yep, that's decentralized, or no, that's not. And then you can also use the 1 to 10 scale, which is much more on personal preferences, also on things like, the lighting of the day, how her makeup is, did she wake up with a smile in the morning, all of the quirks and preferences that go into that. And you could rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And this is somewhat also being used to rate her against other women. And you could do this same thing with protocols. I think, you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, which one of the two is more decentralized or centralized. And then you go to a certain meme coin or a random new layer 1 that's come out or something like that. And it's only got 5 validators and 3 of them are the same person, or with the same entity or something like that. And this is where you can use these kind of rating scales and go, okay, yep, it's a 0, 1, and it's also measuring it on a 1 to 10. The protocol gets fat and lazy, finds a boyfriend, and you're like, oh, this is not so decentralized at all. But then, has a breakup with that certain boyfriend. Next thing you know, it's at the gym and you're eyeing up this hot piece of protocol over there, and you're like, damn, that's pretty decentralized. So you can use this kind of rating scale. It's layered, so if you're using a certain thing on it, there doesn't necessarily need to be this constant stepping up of it, every single portion of it. So I kind of go with the utility aspect as my main determiner of when something has kind of catastrophically failed. If your front end fails, but there's 8 others that are very similar to that, the whole protocol is not now invalidated just because a certain Bitcoin wallet, for example, goes away. Doesn't mean like, Bitcoin's not decentralized, whatever. You don't need to have every single portion of it. And a recent example of this is actually in the crypto podcasting world, and in specific using Lightning payments, where of the roughly 10-ish apps that you can use for sending micropayments to your favorite podcaster, and they're using RSS, and they've got their Lightning address in their RSS feed. About 5 of them were affected by the Albipocalypse, which was Albi I don't know what you call them, a Lightning wallet provider, I guess, of a large scale. Decided that with all the regulations and stuff in the US, and this is pre-Donald Trump getting in, it was too hard. They were being viewed as money transmitters or things like this, and so they said, like, hey, we're going to actually make this a paid service. If you're going to use our things, you'll need to be a paying customer. And this affected probably about 5-6 of the 10 apps. And so you could have gone like, oh, this isn't decentralized at all. Like, I can't use my favorite app. But it's like, okay, no, you can actually still. You just have to pay for it now. And there's also 5 other apps which you could go and use different ones, like Fountain or TrueFans, for example. So I think what we're seeing, and the arguments a lot of time are like picking on individual things, and it's just like, okay, yes, sure, this one thing isn't decentralized, but if the base protocol is, which is the last little bit, and that needs to be the rock solid part, because people are always going to play games like paper-git Bitcoin, market manipulation, DDoS attacks against certain chains, and filling it with rubbish and all this sort of stuff. But the core ability for an individual to interact must remain. And when I'm talking about an individual, I'm thinking mostly still an individual person, if they have enough fortitude to, interact with the code on the most basic level and still being able to transmit to the mempool and things like this. This is the core ability. And if that sort of stuff is now non-permissible or non-achievable, then yeah, sure, you've got a serious problem. And so you can't have nodes, code validators, or any of that stuff being susceptible for someone pulling the plug. And look, I'm bringing up all of this because these are the things that the Morpheus ecosystem, and if there was to be a decentralized agent store, must have. And so when I think about these things, a decentralized agent store, it must be tying into a core concept of anyone being able to provide an agent. And I think this is doable via the builders, where anyone can actually just use, a small transaction, put their subnet on the, I guess, chain in a certain sense on certainly on Arbitrum at the moment, but also Base. And that's the core ability that must remain for people to be able to do that. And then therefore a store which is showcasing all of these agents must have access to all of these. And so, you must have the core ability for someone to be able to provide an agent. And so this idea of a decentralized agent store has been around since the beginning. And I'm going to quote here from the Morpheus white paper, which is, by rewarding developers for contributing code, not just to Morpheus, but also to build more specialized agents, an app store/agent store type experience for users will develop. With persistence of data, prompts, and history owned by the user, the Smart Agent Protocol becomes the best solution for interoperability in the world of LLMs and agents. So we can see like this idea has kind of existed for a while. And the Morpheus ecosystem is about providing this type of experience for someone to be able to come in and use an agent. So, however, something like this isn't easy, and we can see this in the example of dApps, so decentralized apps. And there's a bit of a hard pill to swallow here, which is we've got certainly decentralized applications, and David Johnston, the originator of that term, was also very prominent in the Morpheus ecosystem. But where the hell's the dApp store at? Because in my experiences of using the various different chains, I've tended to find that you can find websites and places where it'll cover the ecosystem, for example, and it'll typically showcase things like different types of wallets, tokens, marketplaces, gaming, education, developer tools, bridges, all of those sorts of things. Yet I wouldn't exactly call that a store type experience, and it's lacking, I think, some of the critical components of a digital product store. And when I say that, I'm typically thinking of the Apple App Store, which they use on your mobile, but I believe probably also for computers as well. I don't know. I don't have Macs. Or the Google Play Store, very similar. Chrome Web Store, back especially when there used to be payments. Everything on there is free now, but that did used to actually have paid extensions that you could use. And to a certain extent, places where you can buy digital products like ebooks or music or software packages online. Those are what I'm typically thinking of when I'm thinking of a kind of digital product store and therefore a decentralized agent store. So what are the critical components? Why is there no dApp store? Well, there doesn't seem to be a place where you can do a direct payment for a decentralized application, nor have a reputation system attached to the various types of products that are there. And why is this? Well, when I think about the payment aspect, it's certainly not lacking due to having a shared currency or token, because all of these chains have their own coin or token. When I think also of the stores in general, most of the things that I listed before, like the bridges, the wallets and stuff like that, are free. So you don't have to pay to access them. So you could be thinking like, oh, that's why. But if you think of the Apple Play Store, Google Play Store, 95% of those applications within there are free as well. So it's certainly not that. You could be arguing, crypto apps are too varied and don't share common threads. But once again, if you think of all the various random stuff that you can find within app stores, for example, the centralized app stores, then you'll see like all the same things kind of exist. You can have software tools for creating notes of games, of things that will improve your phone's performance, of fun, fashion, whatever it is. There's millions of different things out there. So it's certainly not that as well. And if I had to guess it, I would say it's actually linked to the other reason, which is that there's no ratings and reviews. And so you can have, a protocol without a decentralized store, but then you really would want one where it has actually the ratings and reviews kind of built right into it. So when I think about these things, if you're buying a product in person, it sure would be nice to know what the other people have thought about this product. And I'm thinking of the typical experience of going to like a grocery store or something. And sure, that would be nice, but it's not really necessary because you can also feel it, touch it, handle it yourself. And you've usually got 5 to 6 other very similar options of the same thing, So, yeah, sure, it would be nice to have ratings and reviews of these, but cheese is cheese. You kind of know what you're going to buy when you're getting this thing. Whereas with a digital product, I feel it's much more of a gamble as to what is this thing, what can it do, how can I use it, will it be usable on my software device, and things like this. And this is where you need that kind of trust component to get introduced. Now with centralized stores, digital stores, you've got all the KYC things, and so you get pretty high surety that whatever is the rating is that you'll see, and this is where I'm typically thinking of the star ratings of 1 to 5 stars, but also the review sections where people will write a review or a comment on their experience using certain applications or from what they've bought from that digital store. It's usually a real person. And those things I think are designed to filter out all of the bots and stuff like that. And so even if it's like a low quality comment, it's still a low quality comment from an actual person. Whereas a dApp store, if you're thinking about it, would have a real problem with bots and things like that coming in, where it's very hard to actually pass out, like, is this a real thing or is someone just spamming it so that they can get their dApp to the top of the list and therefore kind of game the system in a way. I think of this kind of a similar parallel to the YouTube comment system, which is I find highly valuable at times. And you can go into certain videos, go into any like crypto related one. I don't even think our podcasts are that crypto related, especially the Mere Mortals conversations, which is our main one. Yet that we will still get, numerous comments of the typical scam bot type behavior. Hey, I've got 12 seed words and I locked in a Tron USD account, and then they list them all out. And the scam there is therefore, you would see that and go, oh, I could just get access to this. But as soon as you put in any money or any ETH or whatever it is needed to pay gas to get it out, it just gets siphoned off immediately. So there's all sorts of shit like that goes on. Now, I personally try and clean up all of those, but if you go to other people's, they just let it roam free, and therefore the comment and the comments on YouTube are just trash. There's no value within them. Whereas if people do clean it up, you actually get the real people, and when there's real people in there, you actually get some really helpful stuff. So those are kind of all of my thoughts of like why there perhaps isn't a dApp store at the moment, because even though that would probably be something that's useful and valuable, trying to get around the rating and review section, which is necessary for a digital store like that, no one's found a good way of being able to create something like that. And maybe the ecosystem is still too small, and it's not worthwhile having on any of these particular individual chains and things like this. So where's my dAgent store then? The decentralized agent. We'll see if that word makes sense. dAgent. Where's it at? And why do I think that one would even be created for this? And I think this is where the structure of the Morpheus token plays a part, and the whole ecosystem around it, in that it is built in to have the ratings and reviews kind of put into it. Now, it solves these two missing links of the direct payment and the rating and reviews by the actual token itself. So when I'm referring to this, I'm referring to the staking that is associated with the builder subnets. And so not only does this serve the purpose of obviously incentivizing people to create agents, which is a whole portion of what Morpheus is about, but also the way to access agents, which I think is likely, and showcase just how popular certain agents are. And this is where I imagine this dAgent store coming in. I can't imagine a world where people are actually rating and reviewing individual agents, even though I think this is going to be absolutely a huge thing, having smart agents that you interact with, or a smart agent that interacts with other ones on your behalf, a personalized one. Will you have one or will you have many? I don't particularly know on that case. Yet I do think that this is going to be such a huge thing that you will need to find a way of sorting out which ones are good and which ones aren't good. And so this is where individual rating of agents, I don't think is going to happen. I'm not going to be clicking 1 to 5 stars on individual agents on a particular store and then leaving a review of that. I don't think that's probably going to happen, just because they'll change so much and it'll be so varied. Perhaps. But I think it's actually much more likely to be done with the staking component, which is part of the builder subnets. And so an obvious problem with this is, okay, well, how will this produce a rating or review section? And I think it's more about the rating of showcasing what is valuable and what's not. And so if I am directing stake to a certain agent because it gives me access to that agent and gives me rewards and benefits from that, that I think is the reputation system, if you want to call it that, which will expose over time which ones are the better ones and not. Now, you could almost immediately say the typical problem with staking is that, well, anyone can just get a lot of the Morpheus stuff, especially in these early days where it's not very distributed, the token, and they are just going to stake it all to themselves and they can get more rewards. And so they're going to get rewards from the ecosystem, create their own subnet, direct it to themselves, not do an iota of work, and therefore nothing of value is being produced. And this is indeed a problem that I think just sorts itself out. A system that encourages this will eventually die by its own sword because nothing is being created of value. And therefore, yes, it will go to zero over time because nothing's being created. So the solution, we gotta do something. Where can we fix this? is simply time itself and distribution. And I think the thing with all of these things is the bootstrapping period at the start is the most important portion. Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of them could have died within the first 3-4 years if they just had, like 5%, 10% bad apples who were just fucking around and going for max extraction or things like this, instead of genuine people who were trying to build and create something. I feel like Morpheus is very similar to this, where, yeah, sure, if you had 5, 10, 20% bad apples come in and just go for max extraction, then yeah, it's going to die. What I see, though, is that my observations of the community, the people acting within it at this moment, is that they are genuine, that they do care about a world of having private, uncensored agents and having access for anyone to these things. And that this is what will kind of get you through the centralized to decentralized phase of having the token distributed, people being able to stake, and these type of decentralized stores popping up, or a decentralized store popping up, which gets me onto, I guess, the vision, the Morpheus salesman vision. What do I, the Morpheus salesman, evangelical salesman here, envision actually? Well, I'm not too sure, to be honest. Will it be one store versus many stores? If it's that case, you'd typically think if it's decentralized, it must be many stores. But I don't know. Will the agents, will these stores be referencing like an on-chain register of agents, or will it eventually abstract away and become more centralized and people just, upload an agent via a quick, easy website or something? I don't know. Will I be buying or renting an agent in this type of world? Will I have an agent that is already seeking out other agents in the storefront on my behalf? All of these things are stuff that I personally cannot foresee, and all I can envision is just the world where agents are very popular and in use. How that actually looks, I think you'd be guessing, to be honest. When people envision the future, some people have a very clear vision. I certainly do not. All I know is that, I want to be slapping the roof of the dAgent store and saying, this bad boy can fit so much fucking agents in it. So that's kind of what I envision for these things. And, this is why I keep a close eye on these type of projects and products and see, like, is it moving closer towards this type of world there that I imagine, or is it not? And, you just got to, almost in these types of stages, when you're getting real early into it, take that bit of a gamble. What I actually like about Morpheus at the moment is that it's not too popular. Not that many people know about it. So the ones who are finding their way into it via typically word of mouth, hopefully maybe via this podcast as well, is that they're getting into it and seeing like, oh, this actually has some real obvious utility, benefits, incentives for me to create something that is wonderful, amazing, productive, efficient. And these are the type of people that you want interacting with your protocol, your stuff right at the beginning. And then, yeah, sure, 5-10 years down the line, when there's pure monetary people who are jumping in and doing their thing, that's okay, because the core base has already been built. So, what of all the things that I can envision, and what am I actually looking out for? I'm looking out for the Forbidden Offramp. And so what can I actually see, and what do I think will happen? Well, what I imagine popping up straight away is what you'll see with every new technology, is that you've got the road leading straight to the productive use cases that are legal, but then there's this forbidden off-ramp of drugs, of gambling, pornography. I see there being porn agents, I see there being gambling agents, I see there being drug agents, I see there being evading financial sanction agents, I see there being all these sorts of things which are, socially taboo, if we were going to put a word to these types of things, popping up. Of course, they are mixed in with the stuff that is more productive, or use cases that are legal but perhaps aren't as fascinating. They don't get the attention. They aren't as spicy and interesting to use right at the start. And much like how Satoshi Dice was providing 50% of the transactions on Bitcoin right in the early days, which was gambling, and the Silk Road certainly was providing a lot of transactions on there as well. You eventually see okay, once people recognize, oh, this can actually do this, and it moves further away from all of those things that I just ended up mentioning, then it breaks, I guess, into the more mainstream consciousness and isn't just the dAgent store, the danger store, perhaps, of recklessness of all the worst parts of humanity, because it is just socially taboo. Now, why is this? Why does new technology always seem to do this? I don't know. It seems like centralized places just end up leaning more conservative, not in the political sense, in the idea of no new ideas, of changing ossification, of Puritan values, of things like that. Why? And, I don't know. And this is why I really hope to see the fun, exciting stuff finding a new home. And I really hope that home is Morpheus. And I hope that these agents are the ones that we see, potentially an agent that is the boyfriend, girlfriend of many people in the future, that type of thing. These are the type of things, and then society at large is like, oh God, the youth of today are dating non-real people. And it's like, this is just the world, people. It's moving on. Get with the times. So that is kind of my little vision here of dApp stores, decentralized stores, agent stores, and all these sorts of things. And I'm going to be looking out for it, and I hope you are too. That's going to end today's episode, and you might have already realized that I've already covered, I guess, what you would call the core infrastructure parts, or the structure of the Morpheus project, the 4 C's, the actual creation of the white paper, of what's within it, and things like this. And so, yeah, sure, in these last episodes, I'm leaning towards more subjective things that I find interesting about the project, which I draw parallels with other projects that I find interesting, related to open source, related to governance, related to how people are interacting with it. These are all the sorts of things that I'm going to be talking about in the next couple of episodes. And yeah, with that, this is a value for value podcast. I provide all of this available anywhere, anytime, for anyone. The Mere Morpheus podcast store, if you want to call it that. And everything's free. And you're never going to see ads on here. You're never going to see sponsorships. You're never going to see agents of particular name being paid for me to call out. What you are going to see is just my pure, genuine thoughts. And I hope that I provide value with these podcasts. With that being said, I do hope that you provide some value back to me for that. Value in compensation for the value that you have received up front. There's many different ways you can do this. Time, simply share it with someone. With podcasts like this, is very helpful to have this word of mouth. Hey, check out this link. Hey, Kyrin had some interesting thoughts here. What do you think of this? Etc., etc. You can also share some talent with me of anything that you would like to see audio-wise, topics, suggestions that you would like to hear, of music, graphics, things about memes that you want to see. I try and make them fun. And so with all of that is very much beneficial. And then finally, some treasure. I do have my wallet link down below. So if you want to send me any Morpheus, if you want to use that wallet as a referral for staking capital, if you want to stake to my Builder subnet, all of these are within that same wallet, Mere Morpheus podcast for that as well. And yeah, I think we'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Another couple of episodes remaining until I am traveling in Europe, and we'll be closing off the end of season 1. So with that being said, I do hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. Ciao for now. Kyrin out. Bye.